Love doesn't shatter with a single gunshot. It fades slowly, like a candle melting away with time. I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment it started to dim, or maybe I refused to see it. Clara was once a blaze of fire, full of life and passion. But as the years passed, that fire cooled into routine, and routine turned into a series of excuses. I'm tired. I had a long day. I'm not feeling well. Some other time, okay? At first, I understood. Work could be exhausting. Clara was always a perfectionist, pushing herself beyond limits, and it wasn't uncommon for her to return home drained. But what used to be an occasional weariness became a constant. Nights stretched into silence. I lay on one side of the bed, she on the other, the glow of her phone screen illuminating her face as she scrolled, oblivious to my presence. It wasn't just about intimacy. It was the distance, the lack of interest, the way she flinched at physical touch. Whenever I tried to embrace her from behind, I could feel the subtle tension in her body before she pulled away with an excuse. It's too hot. I'm uncomfortable. I told myself every marriage had rough patches, that this was just one of them. But with each passing night, with each rejection cloaked in exhaustion, doubt began to creep in. You've seemed distant lately, I murmured one night, careful to keep my tone neutral. She exhaled sharply, not even looking at me. I'm exhausted, Julian. Can we not do this right now? I nodded, but something inside me fractured. Her exhaustion was selective. She was too drained for me, but not for her phone. Not for the secretive smiles she gave while reading messages. Not for what I was about to uncover. The day I chose to observe rather than ask was the day her excuses unraveled. If she was truly worn out, why did she sometimes return home with a spark in her eyes, with an energy that didn't belong to me? One afternoon, while working from home, I overheard her voice from the living room. Soft, sweet, different, a tone she hadn't used with me in a long time. I didn't move closer. I didn't ask questions. I simply waited for the moment the veil of deception would finally slip. I wasn't the one who uncovered the truth. It was Carlos, my oldest friend. His voice carried a weight I wasn't used to hearing when he called me that afternoon. Julian, we need to talk. We met at a dimly lit bar, the kind where secrets hung heavier than the drinks being poured. Carlos arrived tense, his jaw clenched as if restraining words he didn't want to say. He pulled out his phone, unlocked it, and slid it across the table. I didn't need to ask. The image on the screen told me everything. Clara, stepping out of a motel, her hand brushing against a man who wasn't me. The air in my lungs turned thick, suffocating. Carlos sighed. I'm sorry, man. I just thought you should know. I didn't yell. I didn't slam my fists. There was no rage, only the quiet realization that my suspicions had been justified. Clara wasn't exhausted. She had simply reserved her passion for someone else. Slowly, I picked up my glass, took a measured sip of whiskey, and exhaled. Thanks for telling me. Carlos studied me. What are you going to do? A small, knowing smile tugged at my lips. Get ready. I didn't confront her. Not immediately. Instead, I prepared. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer, Ernesto Martinez. I had known him for years and trusted him to be both discreet and thorough. He leaned back in his leather chair, folding his hands as he eyed me carefully. Julian, tell me this isn't what I think it is. Without a word, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and placed it on his desk. The screen glowed with the image that had shattered everything I believed about my marriage that I exhaled, nodding in acceptance. All right, let's keep this clean and efficient. We reviewed the details. The house, the car, the bank accounts. Everything was in my control. There would be no battle. As the paperwork was finalized, something inside me shifted. I let go of the remnants of a relationship that had already withered. I reconnected with the man I used to be before becoming the ghost in my own home. I returned to the gym, started socializing again, and rebuilt the life I had neglected. As I regained myself, Clara began to notice. At first, it was subtle. "Why are you going out so much?" she questioned one evening as I grabbed my jacket. "Since when does it matter to you?" I replied smoothly. She frowned, unprepared for that response. With each passing day, her unease grew. One evening, as we ate in near silence, Clara set her fork down and studied me. "Julian, you've seemed different lately." I took my time, finishing my bite of food, sipping my wine, and finally meeting her gaze. "Oh." Her discomfort was palpable. "Yeah, I don't know. It feels like you're pulling away." Leaning my elbows on the table, I offered her a cool smile. "Funny, I was thinking the exact same thing about you." Her expression tightened. "Don't say that. I've just been exhausted." There it was, the excuse, the same tired lie she had repeated for months. I leaned in slightly, my voice low and cutting. "Exhausted for me, but not for him." The color drained from her face. Before she could stammer out a response, I reached into my jacket, pulled out an envelope, and placed it on the table. "Divorce papers. Just sign." Her trembling fingers reached for the envelope, but she hesitated, lips parted as if searching for words. "Julian, can we talk about this?" I smiled, a quiet, unsettling smile that unnerved her far more than shouting ever could. "There's nothing left to discuss, Clara. I already have my answer." I pushed back my chair and stood, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "What does this mean?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "It means the game is over. Pack your things and leave." Her eyes widened in panic. "You can't be serious." Without a word, I walked to the entryway, where I had already placed a suitcase containing some of her belongings. "Oh, I'm dead serious. The house is in my name, remember? And since you found someone else, I'm sure he won't mind taking you in." Her breath hitched. "Julian, please. I know things have been bad, but we can't just decide this so quickly." "Quickly?" I repeated with a hollow chuckle. "You've had months to think about this." I only needed a few minutes. Her eyes darted between the suitcase and the divorce papers. "But I have nowhere to go." "That's not my concern," I said without hesitation. "You had the time and energy for him, so I assume he has room for you too." Tears welled in her eyes. I don't want it to end like this." I stepped closer, locking eyes with her. "You determined how this ended. I just made sure there wouldn't be a sequel." Silence. Clara stood motionless, finally realizing there was no escape. Slowly, she turned, picked up the suitcase, and walked to the door. She hesitated in the doorway, waiting, maybe hoping I'd stop her, change my mind. I didn't. "Goodbye, Clara," was all I said. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in a long while, the house felt at peace.